What Destiny 1 announcements would keep you interested? This is something that the hardcore fan base has been asking for a while, and they kind of deserve it. So, we had Sparrow Racing last time.
We did, yeah.
And that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need something big. I think they need a large chunk of DLC this time, and they need to announce it shortly. What do you think?
I think you're right. I mean, in terms of keeping people interested, like the loop that Destiny operates in, which is, explore new content, find new gear, use that gear to make yourself better and then more efficient at exploring content. Like that loop only works if there's new content, right? Mm-hmm. Something new to do. And Sparrow Racing and sort of smaller sided events provide that in spurts, but nothing really significant. And I think if you're going to want to keep people interested, it's going to have to be something really, really big, like a brand new story DLC, like a group of missions, new strikes. Mm-hmm. But in the interim, what you can do is like something I've been saying for a long time is just let me play year one strikes with sort of taken variants in the Vanguard Heroic playlist. Right? There's all these great strikes that we haven't played in so long, and there's no reason to go back to them because the only thing worth your time is grinding strikes, like the heroic strikes.
I definitely agree with that. Right now, we're kind of stuck in this loop of running the King's Fall raid on hard over and over again for a chance at drops. You can do that about once a week, but we're all kind of getting a little bit burnt out on that. I mean, it's still fun. It's still a fantastic experience, but you have 2 raids just sitting there not doing anything, and there's no incentive to go back to those experiences, which were pretty cool experiences. I think they have this, like with the strikes, they have these huge chunks of content that they're just letting go to waste, that it seems like they should be able to update in some fashion so that players would go back to it. Would you go back and do Vault of Glass if you got higher light level drops on the gear?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of players out there who look very fondly on Vault of Glass and sort of Crota's End or, whatever that... What is that raid actually called?
Crota's End.
It is called that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But one of the really cool things that the Taken King introduced was like the similar strikes. Well, there were new strikes, but like strikes that we'd played before with Taken variants, and they play differently, right?
Yeah.
Like the Undying Mind plays differently if you get the Vex version versus the Taken version. I think that's really cool. And as someone who likes doing that stuff or likes being more efficient at that stuff, I would love to do that on a bigger scale, which is the raids, right? Mm-hmm. That would be a pretty, at least in my mind, I don't know how easy it is. I am not a game developer, but I would love to see them re-implement a lot of the stuff that you say, like you said, is kind of just sitting around,
Yeah. Yeah, they have all this. They have strikes. They have the raid. They have Crucible experiences that are harder for people that only have the core game to access.
Yeah. And I mean, here's the thing is like, what does your week look like when it comes to as a regular Destiny player? For me, it's like I jump on, like let's say it's reset, right?
Yeah.
Tuesday. I jump on and the goal is to do the raid on King's Fall raid on hard once per character. I only have 2, so on my Hunter and on my Titan. I'll do the dailies if I can every day, but like nowadays, these days I don't need marks as much as I used to, right? But I try and keep it at the cap as much as I can.
Yeah, I do like the multiplayer one, and then I wait for something like Iron Banner where you actually need them, and then I use them all up, and then I build it up again, but then I just sit and wait.
Exactly, that's my point, is like I'll get in, I'll do the raids, I'll do the dailies if I need the marks, which I don't really need the marks nowadays, and then if people are on and they're playing Iron Banner or there's something like an event-based PvP, then I'll go do that with them too. Otherwise, I'm not really jumping into PvP just on my own to play because it's fun. I mean, it is fun, but like I love in Destiny to be achieving something as I'm doing it. And without that like carrot on the stick, there's no real reason to stick around. So if they could figure out a way to either, not make Iron Banner permanent, but like either have it be more frequent or new sort of similar PvP modes or more types of Sparrow Racing in the interim, as well as sort of doing what we just talked about in terms of taking variants of strikes and stuff, and then add that all in with one big content drop, I think you'll have more than enough things out there for people who play really hardcore like you and me to want to do regularly.
Yeah, and we haven't even kind of discussed like what else they could do with the Crucible. Like, could there be new Crucible maps? Like, would that bring you back? I don't know at this point. But, like, with this next DLC push, do you think a new raid could come? Like, on Mars. Everybody's been saying Mars is the next location.
That would be awesome. I mean, I think I've said this before on the show, but like with that strike, with the Shield Brothers strike, you kind of, through dialogue, learn a lot about the Cabal. And the Cabal are really, really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know more about them sort of as just like this warring species, right? And if the raid ended up being on Mars and we get to learn a little bit more about the Cabal and how they work and fight cool Cabal bosses, that would be totally awesome. As far as whether or not it's actually coming, I mean, it's totally just kind of a shot in the dark, right?
Yeah.
The chances of me being right if I said yes or no are equal.
I'm hopeful.
So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Yeah, I mean, I want to be hopeful too. I hope that there is a big content drop, a big DLC pack coming, and that it has a raid.
So with all these little pieces of content that Bungie has released, I've almost reduced my expectations for the next DLC drop. You know, and that's kind of unfortunate because they had this amazing thing with the Taken King, but I'm just like, well, don't get too excited because it could be another Dark Below, you know, where it's like a raid and you kind of get through all that content incredibly fast.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the reason why I think it's not as actually, like, I don't think it's as reasonable to believe that the content drop will be a big DLC like the Taken King or like the Dark Below, because I think year one has proven that that's too difficult to do, right? Like, one, it's very difficult to design new content, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Raids are something I'm sure they spend like a year or more just with a team focused on that, developing it.
Definitely.
Probably even longer. I mean, who knows, right? And then at whatever price point you release it, fans are going to be angry that it's too expensive. That's unavoidable. And your statistics show that like 5% or 10% of the entire player base actually ends up making it to the raid. So it's like, why are you wasting your time, right? There's a lot of reasons why there shouldn't be a raid. But then you add to that the fact that things like, you know, the microtransactions have been paying so many bills. Like, a ton of people spend a ton of money on that stuff. And a lot of people seem to be engaging with sort of temporary events like Festival of the Lost or, you know, Sparrow Racing. And suddenly there doesn't seem to be that much reason to want to design something really big. But as the hardcore player like me, I think that's kind of sad. Like, all I want is that stuff. Like, I thought Sparrow Racing was fun. It was a cool little change of pace for the 3 weeks that it was there. But I can't see that being like something I would want to do regularly. And I can't see that being what the future of Destiny is, just like little events like that, you know?
Well, here's one thing that everybody did get a chance to access with the Taken King because of the Spark of Light, and that was this new story elements. They did a fantastic job fleshing out all these characters with the voice actors and everything, and it would be great to see them just revisit that. Sure, okay, you don't do a raid, whatever. I mean, that's a bummer for the hardcore audience, but the 80% of players that get to experience that story, they would love more narrative. And,
absolutely.
And like that's something that they've managed to improve actually with the Taken King quite
I think
a bit.
So, yeah. Well, and you actually bring up a good point. Is like I actually like House of Wolves a lot, and that is you know, that's content that's a big DLC drop that didn't have a raid, right? So it's not as if there's the idea that a raid has to come with every DLC in order for it to be valuable. I don't think that is true. And I say that as someone who loves raids and wants raids, but I don't think you need it, right? Like you said, and I think we've said it before, like I would love for Destiny and Bungie to really double down on what made the Taken King so special, which like you said was cool storytelling, cool narrative, cool voice acting, cool cinematics. Like if that I could legitimately see, you know, the future of Destiny being is like if this next DLC drop doesn't have a raid, but it is 6 to 10 new missions, 1 or 2 new strikes that build in with that
or like
narrative.
4 hours of gameplay.
Yeah,
like 4 hours of story gameplay. That'd be fantastic.
Totally.
And everybody would get to experience it.
Yeah, and it also answers a lot of the questions that we've been bringing up since the very first game, right?
Yeah.
Like since the Destiny in its sort of inception, which is like I want the big questions answered, or at least not answered entirely, but at least explored, right? Like, does anyone what is the Traveler? What is it doing?
Oh man, what if the next story is just exploring that question? What is the Traveler?
Yeah.
How did he get stopped? You know,
why are all these warring races like coming toward like our solar system? Like, why are they interested in the Traveler? Like, they don't appear to have any sort of ability to use its light. Also, like, who are the Guardians, right? Like, what happened during the collapse? Like, all of the setup for what Destiny is in the universe, like, basically none of those big questions are answered. And if, like, we could get chunks of that explored in story form the way we kind of got with the Taken King, like, man, that would be real cool. And that would keep me interested.
I definitely agree. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below, because this is something that the community has definitely been asking for. With that said, I'm going to transition to the next topic, and